Hello and welcome to this episode of the Winter Moon Podcast. I'm David.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Brian.
And we have a special guest on the show today. We have Seth, also known as Droids Rule, from the AMG Rules Forum. That's one of your many talents. You've also top 8'd in Invader League, which just demonstrates that an intimate knowledge of the rules is useful for winning games.
And I promptly flunked out of that Invader League, but thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, you've also judged at Worlds and several other big tournaments, and I TO'd before. So you've done a man of many hats.
Where do you hail from, Seth?
I am based in Boise, Idaho. We have a humble but pretty fiercely competitive scene out here. You guys actually probably are familiar with a couple of the Idahoan Legion scene. I know Will, I think, is going to be on one of your world teams, David. And Scott was second place at LVO. He was the losing Obi-Wan list, or almost winning Obi-Wan list that everyone was really sad didn't make the full cut.
So by Will, you mean William Worf?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, William Worf. He I forget if it was a top 4 or a finalist at LVO one year. He impressed me with his play.
Yeah,
and, he's going to be playing in England for one of our World Team Championship teams representing the USA.
Yeah, he was fifth place 2 years in a row, so he's shooting for top 4 next time, I'm sure.
Gotcha.
He's going to be playing with Evan, right? He's on Evan's team?
Yes, he is on Evan's team. Evan Paul, Doc Falo from Fifth Trooper.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll
have to do a WTC episode at some point. I'm just thinking, we'll have to put that in the pipe.
We need to.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be really cool. So welcome, Seth, and we're going to talk about some new stuff that's happening with the core rules and maybe some rules interactions people aren't totally familiar with, and we're also going to talk about a rebel list that you've cooked up. We're excited to present that today and break it down and why it's good and what sort of advantages it can offer people who have chosen to play along a similar line. So let's roll into this list first off. Let's do that.
So why don't I read it off, and then Seth, you can tell us about it. We put you on the spot a few days ago for our list of the week this week, and we said, Seth, you bring us something, and you better knock our socks off. And actually, this is pretty cool. So I'll read it off, and then you tell us a little bit about it and why you like it and what made you think of it. So we've got the new and improved Lando Calrissian with improvised orders. We have Din Djarin with tenacity, emergency transponders, the newly cheapened flamethrower, jetpack, and this Beskar spear. IG-11 with bounty programming, e-transponders, and recon. We have Rebel Troopers with the ion gun, Rebel Troopers with the DLT, 2 Rebel Troopers with astromechs, 2 sleepers with astromechs and transponders, a slinger unit with the squad upgrade and forest dwellers, and then 3 laser cannon AT-RTs for the folks counting at home. That is 13 activations. So Seth, tell us a little about this list.
I'll be honest, the majority of the list is kind of just like plug and play rebels for me anymore. I'm actually not as big an ATRT guy as everyone else. Not saying they're bad. They just don't make their way into as many of my lists. But in this case, I needed some cheap padding to get the act count up there. Honestly, all the core and support and special forces came second or third just to get me to a neat 1,000, because what I really wanted to run, the meat of the list, is that Lando double bounty. I'm really excited about the new Lando Calrissian having built-in allies of convenience, because I have wanted to run double bounty, double whether or not bounty, even just double mercenary operative is something I'd love to do with rebels, but it's always been a challenge rationing your command slots when you want improvised orders, when you want vigilance. You only have 1 or 2 to move around, and you're trying to get both these mercenaries in there. So Lando having that built-in underworld connections essentially just to begin with is just makes him a real natural fit and unlocks a lot of stuff for me. Um, IG-11 was the one I most wanted to put on the table because every time I've played him in the new Legion edition, he just honestly impresses me. I really like having range 4 pierce shots that are gunslinger. That I've gone to a couple events now, bringing just the range 2 rebel like Alpha Strike, sleepers and that sort of thing, and it's great. But there's been so many times where I'm like, dang, I really wish I had some long range weapons that were hyper accurate, and IG-11 is bringing that pierce from downrange that I think is really spicy. And then, I mean, you could probably pair him with a lot of different operatives, but I wanted to go with Din in this case to try the double bounty out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I
there's
like that you put recon intel on IG-11. I think a lot of times that's with the range 4, it can be easy to think, well, oh, that's like a threat range of 5. Like you don't need any boost to get like your round 1 shots. But a lot of times it's not even about the distance. A lot of times it's just about finding the right angle. And so being able to get like a scout move and then a move and then be able to shoot is like it's well worth the 8 points. And then if you only need 1 move to get there, okay, you can take another move to get closer to your objective, or if you're fine with your position, you could take an aim, right? And he doesn't hate aims at all, right? So yeah, so I like the way you filled out your bounty hunters. You picked the better weapon, which is the Beskar spear. So yeah, some crazy people take the Amban.
I
Spear's awesome.
I gave IG-11 a fair shake early on in the 2.6 missions, and I noticed that like the range 4 is awesome, but there are scenarios where you're like, crud, I am just out of range of what I want to gunsling into. So I felt like that extra speed 1 move is worth quite a lot for making sure he's able to threaten anything he wants at the start of the game.
You know what helps with that is extra speed 1 move at the beginning of every round.
Oh yeah, that segues into one step ahead. I will, note one thing for round 1 with recon intel though is one step ahead specifies units on the battlefield, so it'll never deploy anyone. But for every following round, yeah, all the characters in that list really can make use of one step ahead moves in pretty spicy ways.
Yeah, like
Ding.
let's.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, I'll go. So I guess what I was trying to say is, when the point I think that I'd like to drive home is that those free moves from one step ahead can translate into attacks that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have. So it's just this extra action economy that especially characters like Din, who could really benefit sometimes from just a little further push, especially if, getting melee or getting flamer range, or even just like moving from objective to objective if you have to rotate something around. Like there's so many uses for this speed 1 move.
Yeah, Din in particular, I think because his he gets better the closer he gets. Like if he has you at range 3, he can spend an aim for long shot, and then he's got less aims for lethal and rerolling. If he gets to range 2, he's definitely going to have enough to get you lethal and with all his hits. If he gets to range 1, he can flame you, and then obviously then once he gets to melee, he can whip out his spear. So those moves for Din, I feel like can really sometimes help close threat ranges that maybe your opponent wasn't counting on. Maybe they're looking at the board state and they're going, "Oh, he's going to be able to shoot me with his pistol next turn," and then you 1 step ahead, and now suddenly, "Oh, no, he's going to be able to hit me with the flamethrower this turn," right? So you can really mess with Din's threat ranges in particular, and you can do that with anybody, but I think Din in particular really benefits because he's always getting more dangerous the closer that he gets to you.
I mean, that's a great point, Nathan, too, is that, there's some parts of one step ahead which say, you can pick any unit under certain conditions to do this free move. So, you can be very unpredictable with it.
Well,
Like,
and
who am I going to actually move here? Like, maybe there's an obvious choice, but there may not be an obvious choice that you don't see.
And before we started recording, Seth, you're telling us about a fun little, Lando trick with his command cards, which for those that are let's Let me read this one real quick because the cards are new and people probably don't always remember them yet. But Lando's, I'll say 2-pip in air quotes because it's a 1-pip. It counts as a 2-pip when you're building your command hand. So it basically gets you a third 1-pip. And the effect is if this card is in your command hand during the resolve command card effects step of the command phase, after revealing command cards, but before resolving the effects, you may return your revealed command card and play this card instead. Treat this card as having been selected, played, and revealed instead of that card. So one, obviously there's the fun on the face mechanics, which is, right, if you and your opponent both play a 2-pip, but you'd like to win priority, you can psych him out and swap it out for this one and win. Or if you played a 2-pip and you played a 1 and you really need a shot at contesting priority, you could swap it out and play it for both the 1-pips and have the roll off. But you were talking to us before the cast about how there's a fun little interaction with One Step Ahead that applies to this card. Could you remind us a little bit about how that goes?
Yeah, so the one step ahead keyword has exactly the same timing down to the letter as the ace up his sleeve timing. So both of them are after revealing your command cards before you start resolving any of their effects. So the trick here is you now have one step ahead that you can trigger for a move, and you have ace up his sleeve that you can discard to play instead. You can resolve those in either order. So you can choose to I've like if you like the pips you're looking at on the table right now, you can go, I'm gonna one step ahead and then I'm gonna change with ace of his sleeve. Or you can reverse it the other way where you know what, I think it would behoove me to play ace up his sleeve, and then oh cool, now we both played 1-pips. Now I'm gonna one step ahead. So it's very it feels like cheating, but that's what Lando does. He's just pulling cards out of his sleeves to get exactly what he wants. So that gives you a lot of control. Something else, just an aside with ace up his sleeve, something I'm really excited about is it's just a third dang 1-pip. And not only is it a third 1-pip, but it orders 2 units, and one of those units can be anything because he has allies of convenience. So that's just another 1-pip for dinner IG, which is really cool for a list like this.
And importantly, without paying for CZ initiative.
Right.
Yeah, which is a card I actually wasn't able to squeeze in, and would be one that would be a strong contender if I were to move upgrades around in this list. I didn't even think of that when I was building it.
Yeah.
An important note is that with this interaction, you still will not be able to use one step ahead 2 times. You can use it either before, like you said, or after. You can't use it both times, correct, Seth?
Yeah, because you're still in that same phase. You're in the we haven't started resolving command card effects step.
Right.
That's probably not the formal name, but you haven't moved on to the rest of the command phase yet. You're just resolving all of your abilities that trigger at that time.
Yep. Just wanted to clarify that because it does almost seem like maybe can I do it before and after? But no, you cannot.
So something that you mentioned that I want to touch on. So let's say maybe we have listeners that haven't played a lot of bounty hunters before, or I'll broaden that to operatives that maybe are not always getting orders, but that are still key pieces. Why is it? And I mean, I'm giving it away a little bit here, but why is it so important to have improvised orders? That was something you mentioned.
I mean, for those operative lists specifically, I know people a lot of times like to trigger their independent. They like to have their cake and eat it too. Like I'm going to get my free tokens, and I'm going to have a level of order control on them. Um, I personally am almost always very willing to give up independent for order control. Like to me, an aim or a dodge is not nearly as important as making sure Din activates when he has to. But even then, I can't have an order on Din 5 rounds out of the game. So it's nice to have something like improvised on your off rounds to help keep your order pool in line a little bit. When IG-11 plays his 1-pip or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and especially in the early rounds. Now, is this a list? Is this a list? What command card might you typically play round 1 in this list? Do you think?
That's a good question. What command card do you guys play round one?
Standing orders.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if you'd want to do assault here.
So yeah, I would
Just
say
so you
assault.
get order. So I was gonna say a lot of times, I mean, standing orders is a common play, and there may be situations where it's incredibly important to deny your opponent priority. So that I mean, standing orders is always on the table because going last is really strong on round one. But assault, yeah, might not be, or just some 3-pip that orders everybody, right? You could take Lando's 3-pip too. But yeah, something that is going to get you orders on. I mean, probably Din, IG-11, and probably one of the sleepers
I
is what I
yeah,
would pick. I think.
I found myself playing a lot of stuff like Assault and Legacy of Mandalore, just with the kind of lists I play. That like losing priority isn't as valuable to me as having orders on all my operatives, like all my focus pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't
Or
include command
you can
hand with
also
this. Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
you can also reverse sort with a slightly different build, and if you want to go vets and Mark twos, you could have a couple vets with a couple of Mark twos and have HQs on the vets with the comms guy, and give yourself a little bit of reversed order. But you may not find that to be worth it, but some people might.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forgot to include the command hand on this. I mean, there's a couple things that can move around. I personally am a big fan of Din's 1-pip and 2-pip. I don't like bringing him without both of those. IG-11, all I really think he needs is his 1-pip, and then unfortunately you have to bring his 3-pip. So that's 4 of my cards spoken for. Lando's 2-pip, air quotes. And then after that, I think that leaves us with one 3-pip. That's kind of dealer's
Assault,
choice at that point. There's a couple
yeah.
things you could put there, and I don't have
Yeah.
strong feelings about any of them.
Yeah. Maybe you take Assault or Lando's 3-pip just for the order control. You could take Din's Whistling Birds. I find more often than not, Din's Whistling Birds is fun but disappointing. You can never really count on it to do every once in a while. Every once in a while, it does something spectacular.
So
But you
with
can't really
arcs
count
running
on it.
around, with the amount of arcs that we're going to see here soon, I don't think Whistling Birds is a terrible choice.
Okay, fair point.
Yeah, I
Fair
mean, in a perfect world, right? Automatic damage is king. So any potential for automatic damage against, like, if you're in a matchup against, like you said, Brian Medic arcs or some other like really tough defensive situation, then yeah, auto wounds are crazy, and like we know how good choke is, but choke is 100% is a sure thing, and whistling birds is not a sure thing.
Yeah.
Another like couple generic cards that deserve a shout is in a lot of double mercenary lists. I've been real close to putting aggression or discretion in there, since mercenary operatives can actually play those now too, and not just mercenary commanders. So that
Yeah.
makes in a lot of contexts, if you have like more than one mercenary unit, discretion just kind of turns into assault plus. So
Yep.
it's a light one. It's not really like, I don't think that last 3-pip is one of our power cards, but that's one that I could pretty easily sub out for assault. And it kind of surprises people when you play it in any context, like,
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that automatically replaces assault discretion. It's a great card.
Yeah, because I mean, you can just use it as assault at the worst case. Best case, you can use it and get some dodges if that seems to be more valuable in whatever the current situation is. So yeah, it's just straight upgrade because there's no trooper restriction on it, right? It can order any unit, so you could like order the for some reason if you wanted to order the ATRTs, you could with discretion.
I just thought of popping Din's duelist at the very top of the round with discretion. Kind of spicy.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah. If he's in with the force
Oh
shooter,
yeah.
particularly one that doesn't have force push.
Yeah, you'll be able
Yeah,
to
you can,
duelist. That
yeah,
gives pierce immunity, right? Like straight up pierce
yep.
immunity.
With
Wow.
certain red saves. I mean, it's like swinging into Dooku, right?
Tough.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd duelist anyway if you don't give him orders, but this way you can give him double dodge, which is kind of nice.
Well, yeah, you can give him a dodge, and you can give it double dodges, or you can give him a dodge and have order control on him. because you can actually give them the order, but then skip ordering somebody else.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
discretion.
right.
Dodge.
Yeah, discretion and aggression for viewers at home. Basically, you can order fewer units, and for each one you don't order, you can generate name or a dodge token, respectively. And a cool quirk there is like you can give that token to a unit you also ordered. So I'm going to order one per unit with discretion and give out 2 dodges, and one of the units I dodge can be the unit I ordered with discretion.
Oh, the
So
more
Din
you
can get
know.
all the worlds.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't even realize you could do that because I've played Shadow Collective forever, right? And so since it came out, I've been playing Shadow Collective. I never did that, but I
That
didn't realize that's how it works.
that was a common play back in the day. I think back when you could transport commanders and operatives, right? You'd put Maul in
Oh
the
yeah,
bus, and then you'd play
you
discretion,
play discretion and
order
stack a
Maul in
dodge
the
on it.
bus, and then give a dodge to Maul.
Damn,
So that was also back when you needed a dodge to trigger deflect.
that's true.
So
We're
that
talking
that was
about
that was
legacy,
a
but
combo back in the day.
yeah,
I didn't like it because you gave up your chance to get your 1-pip from At Last.
yeah, I'd play at last, or I'd play
I digress.
That's fine. We can
I
it's
replaced
important
Outlast
though.
with discretion every time.
What's that? You
I replaced Outlast with discretion every time.
Yeah, me
with
too.
Brian, though.
Yep.
It's okay. You can be wrong sometimes, Brian. It's all right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you and I played when I was doing that, didn't we?
I knew it was gonna go there. I knew it was gonna. I was like, we're talking about Maul. This is dangerous.
Brian's
territory.
like, I've got receipts.
Brian's about to hold the W over my head. Yeah, yeah. Which that's how Brian and I met. Is he kicked my butt at Gen Con, but it's all right because I'm up on him since then. So
TTS isn't real.
I know. Yeah, BTS isn't real unless I win. Then it's real.
That's right.
And that is the realist. Well, so I think to wrap up this segment for those at home, I think some cool things here. Well, one, I think a lesson from this list is just that Lando's awesome. So if you haven't given the new Lando a spin yet, and you have Rebels, give them a whirl. Two, I think a lot of things we talked about here have to do with powers of free moves and order control on your key pieces. So I think those are things to think about when you're working on a list and you have multiple key units, particularly if some of them are mercenaries and a little bit harder to order. That's something to think about, making sure that you can go with those guys when you want to go with them, or if you're not going to actually have an order on them, having that improvised orders or something else that can achieve that same effect, so that you can delay not having to go with them too early. Pretty important with your focus pieces.
And I just thought of one thing before we depart this segment. So for those of you coming back to the game because of the new starters, they've changed the way bounty works. It scores immediately, which is way better than it used to be. Because there was always that chance of losing your bounty hunter before you were able to score the token, but now bounty scores immediately. So having I think it represents like one of the, if not the best alternate win conditions, in the sense of like, I can score via the primary, I can score via the secondary, or I can score via bounty. It presents like a sort of clawback mechanic. If you're behind, it's a win more. If you're ahead, and I think it's better than, it would perform better than Secret Mission in the 2.6 environment, in my opinion, because bounty hunters are pretty good at killing stuff. So that's just something I wanted to mention before we moved on.
Double Bounty in particular got real good at picking up their VPs, because it used to be you got one VP at the end of the game for a bounty hunter with one or more bounty tokens on him. So if Din scored both bounties, it was still only worth one VP. But now, since you cash that check immediately, Din can grab both of them, or IG can grab both of them, and you're getting both those VPs. So target rich environment for both of them.
Nice.
So there's a couple other things that I want to hit too. So thinking of Lando and of potential combinations that you can play with Lando, there's some funny things that you can do with units that have disengage. You can walk people off of POIs. You can actually just walk people and just carry a unit with you because you just keep engaging part of that unit, and the unit leader has to snap to you. And then if you run Lando with Jin, Jin gets her independent. Jin can benefit from Lando's what's that ability? I can't remember. One step
One
ahead,
step
right?
ahead.
So she can one step ahead and walk somebody off of POI, and then she can independent move and walk them another a little bit further away. And like there's some quirky things that you can do with Lando Jin or Lando Op Luke, and it's
This is combining with disengage.
yes,
Yeah.
Oh, so you're disengage juggling people by snapping
yes.
them? Oh, that's so cool.
I am so excited to be able to play with that.
That is
I-
so cool and so gamey. That is such a Brian thing. I love that.
Lando was one of my favorite operative Luke pairings, circa 18 months ago. That sounds real spicy. I didn't think about pairing him up again. I'll have to try that out.
Lando up Luke. Yeah.
Yeah.
That disengage keyword, so troublesome but so fun.
Unless your opponent has Callus. Bam.
That's true. Which he's gonna have Callus because Callus is dirt cheap now.
Yeah,
And got
that's
better.
okay. You bring push, it's fine.
Yes, yeah. You should. One should bring force push when they have Op Luke.
Yeah.
It's too good.
It's stapled.
Yeah,
You can even
but
bring
so,
force push when you have Commander Luke and still not be a bad thing. But,
yeah.
hey.
I think the one step ahead's a big deal though. Like you're talking about ranges. I mean, things like you pairing him with a Rebel Boba, right? You can walk Boba up, and he can still get his standby that round. So now you can put him in
Ooh.
range that he wasn't in before. Give him a standby, and now your opponent has to either shoot at him or take a shot. There's just a lot of really cool interactions with Lando and his one step ahead keyword.
I think it's pretty great. And I know I saw some reactions like, why is this guy over 100 points? When you see what you're getting on like Leia or Krennic or someone like that who's only in the 60s, 70s, 80s. I think it's that keyword. Like that keyword is basically a command card effect every round. So I think there's a lot of strength hidden in that keyword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Lando lists can get by with things like FD cannons. Like he can get by with a lot of less mobile stuff because everything else can be so mobile. And so like FD cannons aren't great in 260 because they can't score very many things, right? But if you have a list that's designed to just shoot stuff down and you have some really mobile stuff, you can get by with it as long as they're able to take secret moves before a round.
Hey, can you one step ahead of Bus?
Is it trooper only? Or is
I'm pretty sure it does
It
not
should be
specify
trooper.
trooper.
It's got to be trooper.
No way.
One or more allied unit. Wait, hold on. Choose an allied unit, not trooper. Yes, you can 100%.
You can one step ahead of Bus.
Oh, that's
you can one step ahead vehicles.
That's so filthy.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Move a bus.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bro.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
one
no,
thing
100%
you
you can
cannot
do
move
that.
anything that has an immobilized token.
Correct.
True.
Because your speed 1 would be reduced to speed 0 by the
Okay.
mobilize.
There is a leash on this
That's
ability.
when
There is something.
When Lando's the most meta commander in the land, everyone will bring a mobilize to stop him.
Well, Lando has a mobilize. He's his own counter.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Uh-oh.
Yes, let me just read his one pip. We're just doing a whole Lando segment, I guess.
Yeah, this
This
is the
doing
Lando
that.
episode, which I'm
Yeah.
totally fine with.
There's
Well,
no
people
character
haven't
I would
unpacked it.
bring
I think this is good stuff for people.
Yeah,
It's hot off the
absolutely.
press.
Yeah. So at the start of Lando Calrissian's next activation, he may choose up to one enemy unit within range 2 and in line of sight. And let me segue. Lando has incognito, so it's not too hard for him to end his activation at range 2 of a dangerous unit. Okay, if he does, roll 2 red attack dice and resolve the effect shown below for each matching result. Blank, which is your 1 out of 8 chance here. The chosen unit gains 2 immobilized tokens. Hit or surge, the chosen unit gains 1 immobilized token, so that's your 75% chance. And then a crit, which is also 1 out of 8, Lando gains 2 immobilized. So, and sorry, you divulge this, and this is what gives him infiltrate and incognito. And why would you ever not take this card, and why would you ever not divulge it? Because Yeah, for heaven's sake, give the man infiltrate and incognito. But yeah, that's crazy good. It's a range 2 whipcord off of an infiltrating incognito unit. That's so good. And like yeah, that's just really good. I mean, there's the tiny chance it hurts him, and it's gonna happen sometimes. The one time you don't want your dice to crit. Uh but 7 out of 8 times you're gonna ruin somebody's day. You're gonna immobilize Dooku or Vader or Luke or whoever you've just lined up on, and that
Nate,
will mess up your opponent's plan if they're a speed lower, and heaven help them if they get the 2 immobilized tokens, and they're really hosed.
This just makes Lando Luke even more attractive because now you've got the immobilized trick and you've got I am a Jedi. Like, imagine just neutering their best activation like for 2 turns out of 5, and really 4. Really 4 because the first turn you're walking on the board.
Right.
So
another thing is, like, I mean, yeah, there's that danger of him immobilizing himself, but this is a range 2 thing, and he starts with infiltrate, right? So you can very easily get on a POI, and you're like, okay, so I get immobilized. I'm sitting here on a POI. I have incognito. So what?
yeah, he's just chilling. You can't shoot him anyway. He's incognito.
Right.
But even if he can't move, he still has like guidance, and like if you're not shooting with him, he still has like plenty of
Oh yeah, his
plenty of
guidance
junk he can
too.
do.
His guidance core.
Yeah.
So he can push a fleet or something. Like, it's crazy.
Not just any fleet, Dave, but a super fleet.
A super fleet with
a shotgun.
Yeah.
you guys are
Before
making
or
Dang.
after he's given it one step ahead.
Yes.
Right.
making me a little
So-
self-conscious now because you're like, why would you not take this card? I'll give you one reason, because you
Okay.
took 2 bounty hunters with great
Oh,
movements.
yeah.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
But
You took
Yeah.
IG-11.
I will say one of the other contenders for the list I brought today was going to be with Bad Batch in one of those operative slots instead, because they don't even have a 1 pip, and then you can take a Lando
Oh.
1 pip.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah.
They're only
Spicy.
bringing a 3 pip, yeah, so they could
Lando
suck in
Bad
for one of.
Batch.
Yeah, that's an option too.
And
I just
it-
think Double Mercenary in general is spicy. You could throw any of them up there, and I'd be interested.
Yeah, and it's one step ahead. It's a free move, not a move action, right?
Yeah, so they won't shoot. Yeah.
Well, it can't shoot outside the activation anyway.
Right.
I was thinking tactical
Ah.
for Bad Batch, but yeah,
Yeah,
not if
it
it's a move.
it is a speed X move, to use old nomenclature. Rebel terms would be it's a no time for sorrows.
Right.
Right, there you go. Yeah,
Isn't Scout a speed X move?
it's a move action.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's why Scout triggers tactical, agile.
Right. I knew it did. That's why I was a little confused at the wording there. Okay.
The Scout used to be a move in olden days, but now it's a move action. So
Okay.
yeah, for those at home. Anyway, dang, yeah, okay. Well, today's opening segment was the Lando segment, as it ought to be, because Lando's awesome. Any final thoughts before we move on to part 2?
Part 2.
Okay.
I just got to do some plugs before we do that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, take it away.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let everybody know that we're starting a new series on the Substack, reviewing the Rebel Alliance starter, and we're going to do this article for all the starters. We're going to come up with some lists, or at least one list that I think is probably, I'm not going to say it's the best, but like I think it's a pretty high quality list that you could build just out of the box. So with all the minis that you get in the starter, you can just build this list and bring it to your local for a 600-point game. Or of course your kitchen table if you have 2 people in the home who are each buying a starter. So we're doing that, and it's wildly popular. We got like 1,000 views in 6 hours, which is really good for us. But we're gonna do that for all the sets. And if you enjoy this content, you can become a subscriber on the Substack. There's some paid guides that you can view. Again, it's wintermoonwargaming.substack.com. You can also support us on Coffee, ko-fi.com/wintermoonwargaming. We have a little shop there. We sell an STL file for a POI token, and that doubles as a pass token if you forget that you have passes, which sometimes I do. you're able, and so you can use it as a point of interest, or you can use it as a reminder. So either way, ko-fi.com/wintermoonwargaming/shop. I think that's all the plugs that I've got for right now.
Can I add to your plug, Dave?
Yeah.
For those that enjoyed Dave's streaming at Adepticon, I know I do, and I will, with zero bias, say that Dave is the best streamer around. But
Thank you.
I would have said that even before Winter Moon, because it's true. He's a great streamer, very high quality. All that equipment and his travel budget and these things are not free. So the subscriptions go to help that stuff. So if you liked his stream at Adepticon and you want to see Dave stream more, chipping in a little bit, it goes towards stuff like that.
And we're also locked in now. I just signed the contract today. We're going to be streaming at Ironweld, which is, I believe, a GT. It's in Boston, and we're going to be streaming there. So I'm going to bring all the equipment up from Florida. I don't know who else from Winter Moon will be there. We're still feeling it out. It's kind of a fresh thing. I only recently just communicated that I'm even doing it. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm excited. It's a new event. I've never covered it before. Never been to. I haven't been to Boston in probably 2 decades. I can't even remember when I went last. So I'm super thrilled to just announce that that's going to happen. It's going to be in July. I believe the weekend of July 10th through the 13th, I think, is when it's running. So yeah, look out for that, and we'll have more news as we get closer to the event.
Nice. Cool. Well, I think what we wanted to talk about next on our agenda for today is we wanted to briefly, we'll try to make it quick because we spent so much time talking about Lando. But for those that have been watching the cast up to this point, we opened with a series on the primary objectives, which we had talked a long time about what we wanted to do, and that was what we decided. And we've really liked doing that, and we got lots of positive feedback, people saying that they enjoyed that kind of talk. So I think what we'll probably do is we'll do kind of a mini series on the secondaries. So the secondaries don't generally merit quite as long a discussion on their own as the primaries do, but over the next few episodes, at least not one at a time anyways, but over the next few episodes, we do want to work in the secondaries into what we're doing, because we want to discuss those as well, and hopefully those are beneficial for people to hear about and to chat about. So let's talk about our first secondary that we're going to be discussing, which is today, which is Bring Them to Heal. This is one of the spicier ones, so a heck of a way to start. I'll read it real quick, and then we'll open it up for everybody to discuss here. So it says scoring. Starting in the second round, during each end phase, if more enemy units than allied units have a number of suppression tokens equal to or greater than their courage, score 1 VP. Okay, so that's like the first part. There's this little mini game that's like at the end of every round, whoever has more things that are suppressed, the other person gets a VP. Okay, now there's a second element of scoring. Once per round per player, when a unit gains 1 or more suppression tokens, the opposing player may mark one of their unmarked spaces on the chart below if the condition listed in the leftmost column of that space's row is met. First, that an enemy is panicked. That's 2 VPs. Second, all enemy units that can gain suppression tokens have 1 or more suppression tokens. So that is the second condition. So two ways to score. One is the little mini game of who has the least number of units suppressed. Second is these 2 one-time things that you can claim, and notably, you can only claim them 1 round at a time. You can't claim both of the bonus VPs in 1 round. So to start off with, do we have any thoughts about what either units or list archetypes most benefit from taking this secondary in their battle deck?
Krennic.
So tell me why Krennic, and I might argue with you. But so tell me why Krennic.
I know you. The counter argument is because Krennic also suppresses his own people, right? And so I think that's a fair counter argument, but especially like in Krennic Vader lists, like there's ways to mitigate that pretty effectively, uh, and um, yeah, I think you there's Krennic lists where you know you're going to deal out more suppression than your opponent, and so that's why it's going to work out for you. It's because they're going to have more suppression than you will every time.
Yeah, I think particularly if you pair him with something like strict orders, right? So this is one where a lot of times Empire's solution to suppression is we're just going to use compel. We've got Krennic, we've got the DTF, we've got Commander Vader. We're going to compel everything. I will say that this secondary is one where that strategy is a little more dangerous because you can start to rack up a bunch of units that are all suppressed. Because sure they get their move and they get to shoot, which is very valuable. But now not only do they have, let's say you're a stormtrooper that had one courage, now you actually have two courage now, or that had one suppression. Now you have two suppression because you had to compel them, and so it can make it a lot easier for your opponent to score the mini game that kind of happens on this objective. So that's not a reason not to take it, but it is something to be cautious about if you're someone who's used to relying on compel as a way to get around suppression. It's something that can bite you in the butt a little bit.
I will say, when playing this missions, not even just the mini game, actually, one of the unmarked spaces, I feel like the panicking enemy unit space tends to not be that difficult if you really want it to happen. Like that one seems more achievable than the second one, which is suppressing everything in their army.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a player when they notice that's about to happen to them, activate, a random core in the corner of the table or something. They go, I'm going to recover with that one. And then you're like, oh no, they recover a unit right before you finish suppressing their whole army. And that just ruins the whole thing. So very, it can be very meaningful to take those recover actions you may not be normally, or just using Inspire to its fullest. Just one unit with no suppression on it prevents them from scoring all two of those VPs. That can be pretty meaningful.
Yeah, Inspire is really, really good on this secondary. And so if you have a bunch of units that already have Inspire, like if you have like Leia and Commander Luke, for example, this is something that maybe you want to think about because at the end of the round, you and your opponent at the end of every round, you and your opponent are going to be looking at each other's units back and forth, thinking, okay, that thing's suppressed, that thing's not suppressed. Maybe I don't even want to shoot that unit to kill it because I want it to stay alive, so it counts as something that's suppressed. Right? There's this whole mini game going back and forth. But then if your opponent has Inspire, and remember, Inspire, if you got Inspire too, you can put it all in the same unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can spread it across different units. So if you've got one unit that's Courage 2 and it's got 2 suppression on it, or 2 different units that are Courage 1 that each have a suppression, that Inspire 2 unit can just come in and clean up and totally mess up the other person's plan. So Inspire, very good in this list. One other one that I found out the hard way is I was playing against CIS and I had more vehicles. And so I was kind of thinking, well, this might work out well for me because I can kind of put my vehicles at the front and vehicles don't get suppressed and people need to be shooting like my spiders and my aquas and I can be shooting like I can be shooting his B1s. He had strict orders, which I did not think about. Strict orders is really good on this objective, especially if you have B1s. And
Very good.
right, and you wouldn't normally think to put strict orders on B1s. It was actually really solid, and on this objective, it was on the secondary. It was nasty. That was a mistake. You only make once. I'll put it that way.
That's awesome. If I was a separatist player with B1s, I would take that in my list every time. Like that's
Every
a
time.
great interaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't think about it because you're like,
Yeah.
oh well, droids are they're immune to suppression. Who cares? But just like you can skip so many panic checks. You can again in this secondary, it's great. It's like, yeah, he turned me onto that. That was
Yeah.
Uh,
I think like for Grievous, you're going to take strict in all likelihood just to get that guaranteed, suppression removal on 2, and then like this just extends it. You can play heal. You have suppressive droidicas, So it's just it makes Separatist Invasion look really good.
Yeah.
Because you also have like Lock Dirt if you ever want to experiment with. I don't know. Can you take Lock Dirt in the Invasion? No, you can't. Can you? I don't think you can take Lock Dirt in Invasion, but
I don't think he's listed in the unique upgrades.
no. But he is a suppressive barraging tank. If you ever wanted to try that out on this objective, it's really like. I guess I have two ideas here. One is that high base courage is really helpful because you can't get suppressed until you're at 2, which is really useful. And then it seems like this secondary isn't so much about suppressing the enemy as it is about managing your own.
Big part of
Because
it.
like suppressive weapons do not, at least at this stage, make up a majority of the weaponry in any army. And probably for good reason. But you can spam out a lot, and like it's something that's sort of like it's like one of those like nice to haves, and just keeping heal in your back pocket is one of your secondaries. You're not building around it necessarily. Like Krennic feels like a build around, and I was going back to sort of what Brian was saying, at the risk of going in a circle. Like I have seen so many situations where if you're not running Commander Vader and you're compelling stuff, you're gonna hit panic like really fast. Like I'm thinking, if I shoot a Black Sun once and then they don't rally, and then they'll like they'll probably get shot maybe once or twice, and then like compel once they fail their rally check. Now they're one suppression off from hitting panic unless Commander Vader, and not even if Commander Vader is present.
They'd have self-preservation.
They have self-preservation exactly. So it's even with Courage 2, it's really quite easy, because if you're able to concentrate fire to force that panic onto a unit, if unless some sort of and I guess in sort of the mainstream faction units, like unless Commander Vader is present, you know, if you're compelling, you're gonna have a hard time, I think, trying to manage your own suppression through compel. And I just think the argument against heal for Empire is pretty strong, even if Krennic is very appealing in the sense that he just throws a lot of suppression out there.
Yeah. Now, yeah. So maybe if you're Empire and you're thinking Krennic because Krennic has a lot of tools to suppress your opponent, and you're thinking about bring them to a heal. Maybe that's more of a reason to bring Commander Vader over Operative. I will blaspheme and suggest bringing the inferior Vader. But no, that infinite courage. Yeah, I'm just trying to get Brian to argue with
I
me.
I don't want to. I don't know. I'm gonna bring up a game where my opponent strictly lost because he was running Op Vader.
It happens.
Like
Infinite courage is
he
huge.
strictly lost because his surface scanner panicked.
Mm,
Yep, because an ordnance token hit his surface scanner and he took 4 suppression.
ooh.
Yeah,
In a world
Ooh.
of suppression and POI and panic, it's just I would have agreed with you with Op Vader pre 260. I can't anymore.
I still love Op Vader. He's in my heart. But certainly, if we're talking about in this context, I'll agree with you that on this secondary, at least, you probably got to go the other way. Infinite courage to essentially deny your opponent one of those, which to Seth's point earlier is probably the easiest one to score. Is really powerful. Now, one actual thing we probably ought to bring up. Remember that when your commanders are not on the board yet, they don't have a courage bubble. So if you've got those courage 1 core, when you're
yeah.
moving out in the beginning of the round, if there's even a chance that your opponent can hit it, if it's a range 4 ATRT snipe, if it's a B1 E5S chucking little chip shots, if it's a courage 1 dude and you don't have a commander out yet, they only need to hit it twice.
you you stole my segue while you guys are having your Vader party.
Oh,
I have to say, yeah, I want to give a shout out because you guys mentioned suppressive weapons for a second. There are actually a surprising number of range 4 and 5 suppressive weapons out there. Death troopers, range troopers, FD
mhm.
cannons, and E-webs with the barrage generator. Um, it seems really obvious when you point out the interaction, but it's not that obvious when you're playing. You're like, okay, I
Mhm.
issue orders to my commanders. They're my focus pieces or what have you. I'm going to leave them for last. I deploy this one unwary rebel trooper on the flank, and then range troopers go, aha, I'm here, shoot, panicked, 2 VPs, like second act of the game. You're like, that doesn't feel good at all.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
like if in a tight game, like a 2 VP swing like that is almost unrecoverable. Like in
Yeah.
a really if your opponent is playing a very tight game, you are cooked. Like if that happens to you.
Well, and to start the game 2 points down, certainly it's recoverable, but it doesn't feel great, right? It sort of
Yeah.
puts you in a spot where you almost feel like you have to panic the other dude's unit just to sort of come back. And then if they're playing really defensively and they're like, I'm not going to let you panic anyone, that can be really tough because they can even tank a little bit on the primary, right, in order to prevent you.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, because this objective or this secondary is one where this is one of the ones more than any of them where you can actually punt on the primary a little bit. Let's say it's shifting priorities. You can give up the middle and just say I'm going to win this secondary every time. Now that's risky, but it's actually viable on this secondary because it's one where you can get the point and your opponent you can get it for yourself and stop your opponent from getting it at the same time because
Yeah,
only one of you wins the minigame.
it's really meaningful that it doesn't go to like a 1 VP par like some of the other progressive secondaries
Mhm.
do. It's a one player is winning and one player is losing every time you score it. So that's pretty big in the long
Man,
run.
that makes it really bad, really good on close the pocket. Like, because if you're winning the middle and winning, bring them to heal. Isn't that like a 3 VP swing?
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah,
That's
that's big.
massive. Yeah.
That's big. Well, and to bring it back to where Brian started us with Krennic, here's the use case I see for Krennic because the card that you play, Annihilation Looms, we sort of danced around it. We didn't say it explicitly for anyone that didn't follow. You play Annihilation Looms, everyone on the board gets suppression. So both players instantly check this box. Now, here's what's interesting. Um, a player can only score one box per round. So if it's round 5 and your opponent hasn't scored the panic one yet, and you play this, your opponent cannot score the panic box, right? Because you both score the one where everyone has a suppression. You both get that one, but your opponent's not going to be able to check the second one this turn. So there's an interesting use case for that Krennic play. The other one is, let's say you have an early lead. Let's say again maybe you scored the panic round 1 and your opponent is working up to scoring it, or you have an early lead on the primary and your opponent's like, oh, I need, and maybe your opponent's better on attrition or something. Maybe you're up on points, but your opponent is up on attrition, and you can look at the board and go, well, if this goes 2 more rounds, my opponent's going to catch up to me. But now you play Annihilation Looms, you both get 2 points. That can potentially put you to the point where now you're gonna hit 12 points a round early, and now your opponent loses that last round to catch up.
You're
So
you're
even though I sort
accelerating
of
the game by
yeah,
giving
exactly, you're
both players
accelerating
two
the game.
VPs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you have control over that, that's an interesting tactic. Again, remember, you're also giving it to your opponent, so don't think that you're like it's a free 2 VPs for you, but it's like you're making it a game to 10 instead of a game to 12. And you have control over whether or not you want to do that.
Hmm. That's a really good point. I see how that synergizes with bounty, just to bring us back around to bounty, because again, it's like you're trying to find ways to accelerate the game, and of course, bounty is it's better when you have a smaller overall pool. If you know that you're going to reduce the overall VP pool to 10, because you're keeping this Annihilation Looms play in your back pocket to instantly score 2 VP, like that makes Krennic double bounty like seem a lot better in context.
Mm.
especially because you have Bosk too with suppressive guns, and you know you have access. You have some interesting. There's some interesting stuff in there.
How do you feel about vehicles on this secondary? Do vehicles like this, or do vehicles not like this?
If you have too many vehicles, it could be problematic because it's a lot easier to suppress your guys. So you got to be careful.
And just to clarify, I assume you mean that box that usually is difficult to get with if there's no Krennic on the board, the one where you have to suppress your opponent's entire army.
Yeah.
Same as you're afraid. Yeah. So yeah, if you have a low number of troopers, that potentially makes it easier for your opponent to score that.
How many vehicles though are you going to end up bringing? Like I guess some rebel lists you could bring 5. 3 ATR2s, 2 buses, 3 ATR2s, 2 land speeders,
You
whatever.
can do the same thing in CIS, man. You can do triple decas, double aqua,
Right, you have 5 out
decas,
of
double
11 or
AAT.
12.
Yeah.
I played
Yeah.
against triple decas, double AATs. What took me out at Worlds, man, and I was not
Mm-hmm.
prepared for how strong that was.
That was AJ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, AJ's list is killer. That's
yeah,
triple deca,
good
double
game.
AAT Grievous. Yeah,
Yeah. It was solid.
nasty.
It was good. It was good stuff. We had bring them to heal at one point. Well, maybe this is a good thing to talk about. Bring them to heal was down at one point, if I'm remembering this flop correctly. But I specifically knew that I was going to have to spend a lot of time shooting his tanks, because you can't not shoot. You cannot let both tanks survive, or they'll just rip you to shreds, right? And I'm thinking if we're playing bring them to heal, I'm right. Like if I need to spend time shooting his tanks, I can't be playing bring them to heal, right? Because I'm not suppressing anything. So I purposefully flipped away from that secondary. If I'm remembering I might maybe I'm mixing up someone else, but I think that was how that part of how that flop went. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe that's the case where I mean vehicles. If you have the type of vehicles that are the big ones that your opponent has to deal with, things like snail tanks or ATSTs or AATs, maybe that's an argument for bring them to heal because now your opponent's in a tough spot where it's like, do I shoot the thing that's killing me, or do I shoot the thing that's going to win the secondary? And not being able to do both kind of stinks.
presents a just a bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is usually the sign of the hallmark of a strong list is if your opponent has to make a bad decision or
Mm-hmm.
a decision that's not really going to work out for them no matter what they choose. Yeah, I think that's an argument for bring them to heal if you're playing like an aggressive big vehicle that is your opponent is probably going to have to kill or engage to handle.
Yeah. EXT
One of
double
these
snail.
days, we're going to see Veer's guidancing an ATSD for a standby on a
I'm
POI.
convinced I'm convinced it's disgusting. I've theory crafted it literally since 260 dropped, and I have not found what I think is the magic formula yet, but I think there is one. Because it's
Yeah, it's
crazy to have a 75-point unit that could stand behind a 175-point unit and guidance free standbys on it that can't be stripped. Like that
yeah, and
has to
just
be
let it
possible.
attack again. Yeah.
I don't know what again. I don't know what the formula is yet, but I'm convinced there is one.
How much dice is that per round? Is it 18 dice with Surge because you're rolling the triple rainbow twin
On an
light?
ATST,
Yeah, because that's 9 because it's triple rainbow
yeah. One
because
thing,
you're shooting the twin light.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're going way off into tangent land now, but I'm passionate about this, so we'll go there. Uh, I found the combo. I kind of like Weiss over the Hammers pilot, but
Interesting
that's
choice.
think about what you can do. You can throw the triple rainbow. You can also add the grenade blaster on top of that, and you can stomp on someone, which in 260 happens way more often that
Way
you're
more.
actually going to be able to get that golden land. Or the other option is, I mean, we're talking to bring them to heal for goodness sake. You can be launching suppression bombs like
Yeah.
all the way right. There's your opponent's got some naked core that's on a POI back in the corner of the board because you're playing shifting priorities. And now you can be like, psych, end of the round. That guy's suppressed now because he's over in the corner and you don't have a commander at range 3.
Yeah,
It's
ATST, infinite range mortar.
yeah, it's awesome. But anyway, I brought that up because it actually doesn't combo as well with the free standby. because Weiss is a free action.
I was actually going to correct you on that. I don't know if I want to say this changed earlier than the latest cards, but I'm looking at the latest cards.
Did it change?
I know the OG like 2017 Weiss or whatever was exhaust to gain Arsenal 2 or something like that, but the most modern card, it changed at some point, is just this unit gains Arsenal 2. So you have it during the standbys as well.
Oh, you just made my night.
Yeah.
But you can only hit the target that triggered the standby.
Right.
But you could still do 3. You could still hit
Yeah,
him
you could still stompy,
Yeah,
or still
you-
grenade launcher twin light
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
on the
You
same
stun him
target.
with the triple rainbow and the
Okay, yeah.
grenade launcher blast,
I'm
which is gonna be
actually I think you just won me over on Weiss, because if it's permanent Arsenal 2, I think that you want the blast in that pool.
that just made my night, because I think literally up until 1 week ago it did not say that, because I don't think this card. I think this card just got updated. I don't think this was in the July updates. At least not on Tabletop Admiral.
I have a lot of cards floating around in my head, so I can't confirm.
I
or
know,
deny
yeah,
that
so-
That's
statement,
fine.
but-
Yeah.
Seth's accidentally revealing stuff he shouldn't reveal.
Uh-oh.
No. He's not doing that. No, so we should maybe this is a good seg. Maybe this is a good segue. Maybe this is a clunky segment, because we're not even talking about bringing them to heel anymore. We're talking about Weiss. But
It's cool though. Weiss is cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, he's cool. Maybe
Weiss-
listen to the week next week. We'll do a Weiss Veers Callus list or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, someone send us one in the mailbag and we'll talk about it. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up officially. Do we have any more thoughts on bring them to heel, tactics for the players to take home?
Just I think the point about managing your own suppression is probably the better approach to the secondary than forcing suppression onto your opponent, because your opponent can always strategically recover.
Yeah.
So just having good ways of managing your own suppression is probably more powerful in the long run.
Nice. And you can also recover. Keep that
Oh,
in
yeah.
mind. You recovering is a big deal. And like you said, I think be mindful of when your opponent can recover. Good. This is a situation where it's often it's better to shoot units that have already activated. Right? Normally the common wisdom is shoot things that haven't gone yet. If you're trying specifically to score bring them to heal, if you shoot something that's already gone, it can't recover before the end of the round.
Right. The timing is crucial, because because you don't want to shoot things that have a rally step in the bag plus a recover action.
Right. Plus
Yeah.
recover. Okay. Yeah. Good note to end it on.
Yeah.
So I think for the last segment, we brought Seth on here, as much fun as it's to just talk about random rebel lists. Part of the reason we have Seth here is because of his special sort of expertise as he's kind of the rules czar of Legion. I mean, you work on the forums. It's a little more than that, though. Can we say that? I mean, Seth, how much do you feel comfortable talking about sort of what your role is as far as rules go and the forums and things like that? What do you want to tell the people back home?
Let me describe the concept. So there is a official Atomic Mass Games rules forum. They manage this for all their game systems, where whether you're playing Legion or Shatterpoint or Crisis Protocol, what have you, the X-Wing Armada ones still get answers too. People, you can approach them with questions you have about the rules, and you get a formal response. So it's like a living, frequently asked questions. From my perspective, running the forum, the goal of the forum is never, ever, ever to add information that's not in the rulebook. My goal is that you should be able to figure out these answers yourself using the card, using the rulebook language. I'm just there because not everyone loves flipping through different pages in a rulebook or cross-referencing 5 different cards to get an answer or what have you. So I like to show my work when I answer a question and show because this keyword says this and because this command card says that, here's the answer. So I do the work for them and I give an answer. So other players at their table in the future can just real quick search, how does One Step Ahead work with this card again? And just bam, search, and they can find it real quick without having to do the busy work. So it is right now the forum's actually a little smaller than it usually is because we're in the process of revamping it for the new rulebook. Literally every single post is getting reviewed and reposted. 99% of them, nothing changed, but a lot of it's just style updates, changing at to within and stuff like that. And it also gives an opportunity. I'm sure we'll talk about a couple things coming up. There's some command cards that I'm like, oh, a couple words changed on that card. The answer is actually different now. So it's been kind of an opportunity to catch some little nuances that changed. So that forum's available on the official website. Right at the bottom, that rules page we've been talking about a lot with all the battle forces and new cards and new rule book. You scroll down at the bottom, there's a rules forum link. If you ever have any questions, hit us up and we'll get back to you. Sometimes really quickly if it's an easy answer. And if it takes a long time, honestly, just take that to your credit that you've stumped me. And I don't have maybe a very good answer just yet, but we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah. Do you feel okay talking about the process of what happens if you get a question and you don't know the answer, or there is an answer but you think, this is what the rules say, but I'm not sure that's what was intended. Are you able to talk about that process at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we get a weird question, I'm in real close contact with the co-mod LJ, LJ Pena. I'm also in real close contact with the Legion design team, Will Pagani, who you just had on last episode, the Legion developer team. I literally slide into their DMs when there's a rough question like, "Hey, can I get a sanity check on this one? I think it works this way, but I don't want to create a bunch of drama if I answer the wrong way." And sometimes the answer's like, you know what, you're right. We need to fix that in the next rulebook next month. And that's why I always think it's funny. The last couple rulebook updates, there'll be blue text, just one word here or there, and someone's like, didn't it always work that way? And I'm like, good. I'm glad you think it always worked that way. That means no one noticed. But really, there was probably a big issue or two. That's the story behind that. That new blue text that most people didn't notice. So all the posts are vetted for accuracy. If not by me, then if they're a hard one, we loop in everyone that you could want to loop in to make sure it's consistent with the intent of the game. We're not posting things that break the game. That we definitely don't want someone to have read the forum. I don't want someone to have read the forum to figure something out. I want to make sure they could reach that answer with the rulebook. So that's real important to me.
Yeah,
So
curse you, Nathan, for asking him questions about my force push shenanigans.
I was just about to bring that up. Okay, I'm going to tell the story so I can tell it my way, and then Brian can correct. But Brian was cheating. No, I'm just kidding. So Brian and I were playing. No, I want to bring this up. This is a change I saw in the rule book that I was thrilled about. Brian and I were playing a game however many weeks ago it was, and Brian had done something very clever, and you'll probably have to correct me here a little bit. You'd somehow like force pushed my guys, and then I was supposed to make a move, and it was only like a speed 1 move for some reason, and I was going to move onto the POI, but you had force pushed me or done some other shenanigans such that the models in my unit were already blocking the spot where I wanted my unit leader to go. So I went to go grab the models and move my unit leader there, and you were like, well, no, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I'm moving the unit. You reco when you move. And we kind of hashed it out, and we looked in the rules, and I was like, okay, I think Brian might be right, but this feels wrong. Everyone knows when you move your unit leader, you just kind of pick up the other models and then you move your unit leader and you set them down. But Brian was totally right in the rules. And I mean, let's be honest, that's how we've all always played, is that you always pick the dudes up and then move the unit leader and set it down. That's how we've all been doing it for years. But Brian was totally right. In the rules as they were, that's actually not how it went, right? But
Yeah.
in this most recent rule book update, I noticed, there's a passage now that says when you move you or place your unit leader, you pick up all the other models in the unit first,
So
or you may pick them all up, or something to that effect. And
right.
so now it's like now it works the way that we always sort of intuitively thought it was supposed to work.
Yeah. So what had happened is I'd force pushed you in a way that your unit leader was no longer on the POI, and I
Mhm.
positioned your guys in a way that when I re-engaged your a mini in that unit, that there was only one place where you could place your unit leader, and it had to be outside the POI.
Yeah.
That's what it was, and so now you can't do that anymore because it would just
Yes, that's what you did, because there were other minis in the unit that weren't touching you, but
yes,
they were still blocking off the spots where I would have liked to put my unit leader.
yes.
That would have put him touching the POI. It was a very classic Brian, very very dirty trick. But now it's like, yeah, now anytime. Now I think in melee you still, if someone engages you in melee, you still leave all the dudes that are in melee. But other than that, like anytime, right, you're placing your unit leader, you pick up all the other models in the unit first. Place
Yeah,
or move, I think is what it's.
there's still some idiosyncrasies to the moving into melee process where you can game like where they can, control where they can put certain models
Mhm.
into base contact with you. But when performing a move, you now have the rulebook's blessing to shove all your other minis out of the way to make
Ah,
room for where your unit leader wants to go.
so what I did is still correct. That's fantastic.
It it gets pretty complicated in it makes a lot more sense when you actually put the minis out on the table, but yes, there are definitely still scenarios that you can block out because moving into melee process very specifically says unit leader does X and then everyone else does Y, so
Oh
everyone else,
yes.
yeah, so there are scenarios
Were
that
we
they can
gonna?
be blocked out.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Oh
pull up
yes.
my rule book.
Oh
Let me see. Star Wars Legion.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I'm
man, you guys
doing
are
this
doing
because
that
I
on
gotta,
air.
there's
I gotta
Oh
have the
boy.
chance to stump Brian if I can, because I can't let him. I can't. I'm that Breaking Bad meme. He can't keep getting away with this.
it's some really big brain plays to kind of that's one thing that's really fun about melee interactions right now is unit leader snapping first, and so you can really manipulate where an opponent's unit leader snaps uh, if you have force push and re-engage the unit. It's pretty important tactics
I
to
have to
learn.
say, the moving into melee and melee cohesion rules are one of the things I see most often brushed over by players. They just kind of, bunch their models together and don't really worry about them too much. And I'll be honest, in your average, like, core on core punch fest, it's not that important. But I do always encourage people, like, let's do the process, unit leader first and everyone else, because it could be really important later in the game. And yes, there's a lot of opportunities for players to create kind of no-win scenarios for their opponent, like, there's not room for your model there, that you can bubble wrap yourself in combat with V1s and stuff like that. um,
Mm-hmm.
Lots of shenanigans for operative Luke.
Yeah, can't stand on a POI, so I'm gonna hug the POI and bubble wrap myself with 5 minis or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
However many minis it is. It's probably 4, but that's kind of the idea.
Yeah. So you can max. You can put 4 around you and prevent anything else from getting to you. But four is the minimum amount of minis that you can put around you and prevent other stuff from getting to you.
Yeah. All right. I will eat crow. I have to publicly admit that Brian is right again. But yeah, his shenanigans are still are still, yeah. So it's when performing a standard move, you can move all your minis out of the way. So you can still do gross things with engagement, because the unit leader does have to snap first. So if all the other minis happen to be in a way that's blocking, then your unit leader has to go anyway. But Brian will keep getting away with this, which is sad news for all of us. But no, the good news is that the thing that our conversation had sort of led me to accidentally discover is that just performing normal moves in the old rules, technically you could block yourself off with your own minis in your own unit, which that was the one that was really like, okay, that doesn't seem right at all. And now the rule book is like, that's not right. So that's awesome. Um, sorry. Anyway, to bring it back, have to give the bear his due. Um, so you mentioned stuff that there's a lot of people kind of brush over the melee rules. One kind of an important question I wanted to ask today is with this big rule book. What do you think are some of big is the wrong word. What do you think are some of the changes that either you are really happy to see as the guy who runs the forum, that you're like, yes, these are awesome, so glad this is an updated rulebook, or what are some other things that maybe you think a lot of us veteran players who have old rules rattling around in our brains, what are some things that maybe we're likely to miss or likely to misremember compared to the new rules?
The answer to those are very different, and there's a lot of answers to them. As far as big changes for everyone, veteran and new alike, that to be aware of, this is kind of the elephant in the room. I think the new area terrain is really good to get acquainted with.
Mm.
I'm really excited about that. This is I won't go into I kind of pet peeve of mine is like comparing, V.1 to V.2 to V.3, like it's a lot of rules rattling around in my head. But this is what changed. I was really excited to see, because it really neatly ties up with a bow a lot of terrain interactions we have. I feel like since we got our core rule book, there's been a kind of question mark for players like, vehicles block LOS like area terrain. That's weird. Does LOS block area, or does area terrain block LOS? Like that's always been a question mark for players, and now the answer is yes. Area terrain does in fact block LOS just like vehicles do, or rather, now more appropriately, I can say vehicles block LOS just like area terrain does. So it kind of weds a lot of language from different train sections together.
Not all
And
vehicles, real quick. Just not all
oh,
vehicles block LOS.
thanks. Ground vehicles and hover ground repulsor vehicles block LOS. Yes, repulsor vehicles do not. So that's good to get acquainted with, both in a just from a gameplay perspective, and I think it'll add a lot of spice to people's tables. Um, as far as veteran players go, this is going to be a boring answer, but just read your command cards, guys. Like, read them. Don't assume they do exactly the same thing they did before. A lot of times, the spirit of what they did is the same, but I've caught a lot of little nuance changes on there that we can talk about, like fun quirks with some of the command cards you might take for granted.
Do you have a couple of those off? I mean, in mind when you say that, that's like things that maybe people would miss if they're
Yeah,
just looking at the old versions of their cards.
yeah, random stuff. I this one a lot of people have already caught. Air support and orbital strike for the Clone Wars factions can be used by more units than they could before. They used to specify like droid trooper and clone trooper or something of that nature, and now they don't. So a lot of commanders, a lot of field, like a lot more options on what units can play that card now. So that's pretty exciting. Um, Veers's 2-pip gives nimble now.
Mm.
So that makes that one little dodge token feel a lot more relevant when you're actually spending it
Yes.
every time your ATSD gets attacked. So that's pretty cute.
But it's
Um,
only car or units that are issued orders from the command card now,
yeah, yeah.
which
A
makes me
lot of
very
a
sad.
lot of cards changed to that. So that's a good shout out. The lots of cards added that units issued an order using this card. So a lot of ways of coordinate and entourage, like ballooning the amount of units that benefited from the card. Now it all got reined in. to the 1 or 2 or 3 units.
Let's also not forget uplink spam that is now dead.
Yeah,
But
it's not
I was
just
just thinking, like, man, I'm really grateful that, like, we don't have any more shenanigans where it's like I'm gonna have like 10 uplinks and I'm gonna play No Time for Sorrows and just uplink everything, and I'm gonna eat like 5 to 7 minutes just doing speed 1 moves for for like 11 units of my army or whatever. Like, that's such a great use of time on a shared clock, right? It's so gamey, it's shenanigans. So I'm glad that's gone.
There's a
Yes.
couple other quirky ones, like cards you don't see too often, or at least I don't personally. Some people are like, that's my favorite character. I use that card every game. Um, oh, IG-88's focused on the kill that keeps him from being defeated. That got totally reworded to how it works.
Oh.
What's kind of spicy here? So the new language. I'll just read the last paragraph. IG-88 is not defeated when he is assigned wound tokens equal to his wound threshold. At the start of the end phase, if IG-88 has a number of wound tokens equal to or exceeding his wound threshold, he's defeated. So, some quirks about this new language. The old language was something, I'm going to paraphrase. When IG-88 has wounds equal to his wound threshold, he is not defeated until the end phase. So the basically, once he took 5 wounds, the trigger was hit. He is now going to be defeated, but it just delayed that defeating. This new language is you don't check to see if he's defeated until the end phase that he has wounds equal to or exceeding his wound threshold. So
Medbots.
yeah. So he can be repaired is the win. The loss is he can actually take wounds beyond his wound threshold. So if you like dumpster him with, so you have to heal him down to below his wound threshold to prevent him from being defeated.
Okay.
So that's just a couple words
risky.
moved around, but it totally changed the way that card plays for IG-88, which is pretty exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
really
that.
It's still a net win, because before, if you were hitting 5 or over, you're dead no matter what. Now it's like even if you hit up to 7, it's like, well, so you're saying there's a chance, right? Like, I got these 3 repair bots that I need to put to good work. It's like, okay, that's interesting.
Another one that changed in a subtle but big way, and I think a lot of people already caught this one because Callus is on everyone's mind. His 1 pip used to say enemy units cannot withdraw from him that round. So Operative Luke would do a little dance all around him. Anyone with disengage. Now it just says they can't, I believe it just says they can't perform moves, like, at all. So it's not just withdraw, it's units engaged with him are stuck with him. So now the answer is force push, as I'm sure Brian's thinking. But like Jyn Urso's stuck there. She can't just walk away from him with disengage.
Get wrecked, Jyn. So bounty Jyn, that's what you're saying. If you got Callus, put that bounty on Jyn, play his 1 pip, and she's not going anywhere.
Speaking of Jyn, though, so Jyn has an interesting interaction with her 1 pip, because her 1 pip is currently the only card or ability in the game that allows someone to take an attack action outside of their activation.
No, attempted.
Oh, I guess tempted.
There's a lot of ways to attack outside the activation.
Okay. I was just thinking about charge and relentless. So because that change took that away from stuff.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Seth.
Jyn's 1 pip got a lot more flexible in general. I'm not immediately thinking of any major interactions with them using the action nomenclature for that card versus not. The fact it's a move action just means you can like climb with it or do things other
Triggers
than standard
agile.
move. Right. For an attack action, I don't know if there's anything in the game yet I can think of that's particularly relevant. But what's cool about the card update in general is it used to just be like she could move or attack, and then when she moved, she could trigger her charge. But now it actually says she could move and then attack, so it's actually giving her something closer to Relentless now, where she can move and then shoot her pistol even if she wants to, which is actually a lot more flexible for her.
That's
cool. That's really cool.
Which is her melee or her pistol better? I don't remember off the top of my head. I
think melee.
her pistol was kind of amalgamated, so it used to be like a two-sided card where it had a range 3 side and a range 2 side. Now it has like
Okay.
the dice of the range 2 side with long shot, so it's kind of like halfway between the two.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Oh, that's it.
that's a decent pistol.
It's a
Two
better
red and
dice though.
white, surge
2 red
crit.
and white. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
That's
was your
yeah.
range 2 side. Was those 2 red and a white with Pierce?
Okay, so here's the play. You take offensive push, and you get your move, and then you offensive push and long shot off of the offensive push for like
I
a
David, I'm
big
glad
threat
you brought
range.
up offensive push. It's like you fell right into one of my
Oops,
segued for me.
you triggered my trap card.
I activated your trap card.
Yeah, no, offensive push is one of the cards that I would also recommend people who have used it for years and years and years take a fresh look at. So offensive push used to be exhaust it while you're performing a move to gain tactical for that move. Now it is a free action, exhaust to gain tactical on your next move.
But
So
you could not do it in what Dave just described.
Really?
yeah, and another major
Oh, okay.
interaction to be aware
Rip.
of is it used to be if you had scout, you could exhaust it while you were performing the scout move. But now you couldn't exhaust it prior to performing the scout move because you can't do, voluntary non-move actions while you're undeployed, basically.
That's
So
unfortunate. So you're not
yeah,
able to do it outside of your activation anymore.
so offensive push got narrower in its window for when you can exhaust it and use it.
Okay.
Interesting. I'm trying to think if there's a play with like EXD there as well, because their token thing is a free. I guess most people have to do with AI. If you have any droids, if your AI is going to trigger, that potentially would mean you can't use your offensive push before your AI. I mean, AI is easier to
Yeah, there are
avoid these
scenarios
days, but
that AI locks you out of doing a free action prior to doing your AI action. That's come up
right.
with the
Okay.
experimental droids battle force before. Yeah.
Okay, and obviously the biggest thing is what we just said. You can't use offensive push outside your activation now.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I actually caught that one doing the forum for scout posts because people ask, can I exhaust offensive push on a scout move? And the answer a few weeks ago would have been, yes, you may. And now it's no, you cannot, because you would have to exhaust that as an action while you're undeployed, as a free action, pardon me. And you can't do that while you're undeployed.
What's the timing with compel? Can compel happen after free actions, or does your move action from compel have to be your very first thing you do? I'm putting you on the spot, but
Compel has a
uh,
funky timing. Compel is at the beginning of your perform action step.
so I think that's
Yeah.
before.
That sounds like it's before
Has to
anything
be
else.
That also sounds to me like it's before like voluntary actions and free actions because it's the beginning of the step.
Okay, so no triggering offensive push off of a compel move. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so offensive push, one of those. I am a fan of the new timing because I will say that offensive push was kind of a smarmy card for a long time. One of my favorite questions I've seen with offensive push was it says you exhaust it while performing a move, but it doesn't say it only lasts for the move. So do I have
Right.
tactical one for the rest of the
Right.
game?
Yeah,
I'm
that old
sure
chestnut.
It's like I know it doesn't work that way, but I'm not going to say like they don't have a point to ask that question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When it
I can see how from a rules perspective, even though it's a nerf, I can see how from a rules perspective this is a lot cleaner.
when it threw it would when it first came out, it just never made sense to me that it didn't last for the turn for that activation. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't specify that it's just for one move. Like that drove me crazy.
The new one has a very clear, this is when you use it, free action, and this is when it ends after your next move action. Like it's got a clean window to it.
Very clear cut.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of. I'm like rigorously reading through all the command cards, Seth.
I'll warn you, most like the overwhelming majority, like no functional changes, but they're just, I encourage you to not take your cards for granted. Read it. 'Cause you might catch something that's cool.
I was just reading On the Hunt, which is the new Hunter, That one's a little bit different too. The thing that comes to mind is it says it says you get the aim during the roll attack dice step. Where that seems to matter for me is for units with long shot. So I guess I don't even know how the timing worked before, but I think it used to be like when you declared an attack, right? So like if you had long shot and range 2 and hunter, you could like declare the attack and get the aim and then shoot them. Maybe that's not how it worked before, but I guess what was clear now is that it's very clear now that it doesn't work that way. That if you got long shot, that you have to already have an aim if you want to declare an attack on them on the hunt.
I
Can't
pulled up
do
the
it for
old
you.
hunter, and it did say during the roll attack dice step.
Oh, never mind. I'm just
The
making up.
change for on the hunt is instead of just saying wounded trooper unit, now it says trooper unit that has one or more wound tokens.
Oh, okay.
That's much clearer.
Wounded is still defined in the rulebook. Wounded hasn't changed, but yeah, that's a shortcut for players. Like now you don't have to flip to the rulebook and look up what does wounded mean. It
Right. If
just
I had a wound and then I got healed, am I still wounded? If I'm down a
yeah. So
model,
there
is that
has to be a
wounded?
wound token presently on the unit, which is synonymous with wounded, but fewer steps.
Nice.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was very confusing when it first came out. Like, I think that's one of those perennial questions with the way that card was worded.
Well, so are there? I mean, we've talked about a couple things that you thought people might have missed. You pointed out that just review your command cards, which is good. Um, Are there any changes that you were really excited about, like changes that you've been waiting for, or just when they came up, and in the rulebook that you're just like, yeah, these are great. These are really going to make things more functional or easier to understand, or anything in that vein.
It's a big. I mean, if you want my personal, like, just the tiniest change that I'm really excited about is Toe Cable actually doing something by giving an immobilized token out.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited
Yes.
about that. That really helps age it up, because forcing a reposition on a vehicle that can probably free spin anyway when it activates wasn't very meaningful, and now the immobilized token like actually definitely is going to probably have some impact on their next activation. So
You can you can
that's what's really near and dear to my heart is the Toe Cable buff.
you can stop that bus from getting that one step ahead move.
Yeah.
You can pop it with the
There you
toe
go.
cable. Okay, yeah, yeah, that's a good one. Uh-huh.
um, I'll also note this is getting real rulesy, so I won't go too deep into it. The definition of a standard move broadened a little bit, where strafe moves and reverses are considered standard moves now. Um, that actually does unlock a few interactions that maybe didn't exist prior, where abilities that say after performing a standard move there used to be like a weird gotcha, like if you reverse your tauntaun, it doesn't get X, Y, and Z. Now reverse is considered a standard move. That's to clean up the like, for me that really cleans up a lot of the movement language, because standard move basically is the sequence for performing a move: step 1, step 2, step 3, and now those alternate moves can refer to the standard move and then just say with the following exceptions. So
Mm,
reverse is a standard move where you use your back notch. Strafe is a standard move where you use your side notch, and then it's very clean and
mm.
simple. um, so I think cleaning up was probably the main impetus for that, but then it does have a couple little wins for like tauntauns and dewbacks that are like, hey, cool, I qualify for some keywords when I reverse that I maybe didn't prior.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's actually super. That's actually
That
super.
is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Well, and it allows you to, if you're, your Plo Koon saber tank, right, or junk like that, right, you can get your dodges off a strafe, right? You can do junk like that. Your
Right, because
tauntauns
agile
get
would
their
trigger.
dodges when they back up.
Yeah, that's actually kind of huge because if you withdraw on a reverse, right, you get your dodge. I'm guessing.
And
I'll
you can
tell you.
trigger your, yeah, and you can trigger your relentless.
I'll tell you why I was excited about that internally is I got some really great questions over the last year about stuff like climbing vehicle. So climb is explicitly not a standard move. So the question was basically, to summarize, how do I make a climb move with an ATRT? If I'm not following the standard move sequence, like uh, how do you do it at all? Do they get the free rotation? Do they slide along the template? Do they stop when they contact a piece of terrain? All of that is hidden in the instructions for performing basically a standard move. So that's what, like, that was my first interaction with, like, like, maybe there's a lot of important information in that standard move entry that probably should apply a lot of places. So adding that, like clarifying that for how all the different kinds of moves interact, cleans up a lot of things. But yeah, win is Tauntauns get more agile, so I'll take it.
Nice. Now,
So-
just clear, climb is still not a standard move, right?
Right, climb is still not a standard move. The climb entry, I think, also got a little blue text that that also cleans up how you do it. It says you make a move as normal, so that means you follow like your normal movement sequence, which is the step 1, step 2, step 3, but it is explicitly not a standard move.
Gotcha.
Okay.
But that makes it very more clear. So now it's very
But
clear if someone goes to the rule
it-
books. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few months there where maybe a little stinky and strafe and reverse. Like which parts of the movement sequence do I ignore and which parts do I modify? So now it's very clear
Right.
which parts you ignore and modify.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So what about like maximum speed? Is that still, because that was something that kind of changed in July, that kind of took people a minute to sort of realize was different. Were there any sort of updates to how that works in these rules?
Yeah, you'll
Or-
notice in the rule book, maximum speed as a term just doesn't exist now. It's speed everywhere in the rule book. There are still cards that refer to maximum speed. I assure you, it means the maximum speed of that move. Like speed and maximum speed are synonymous terms.
Mm,
And it was removed from the rule book again to make all those different speed modifying keywords, increasing your speed with spur, reducing your speed with immobilize, reducing your speed with difficult terrain. All of those pretty uniformly affect all those different kinds of free moves and special abilities, except where the ability in question very specifically says it can't be reduced. So, like Scout says, not reduced by difficult terrain, or some things say to a minimum of 1, or something like that.
mm.
So now the move in question or the ability game effect in question will tell you how much it can be modified, but generally you can uniformly modify any of them. Speed goes up and down regardless of source.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
has Wookiee Defenders been fixed yet then?
TBD.
Okay.
TBD.
Battle shields do reduce your speed for any and all purposes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Battle shields, poor books. At least they can't be force pushed.
Hooray.
It's
Luke's
so
like
worth it.
curses. He'll just have to use
Yeah.
disengage instead.
I'll take TBD though. I like TBD
works.
better than no. I don't know. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Seth?
No, I Seth, it's been great to have you on. It's really fun to like explore these interactions and like talk about some of the nitty gritty and like really dig into the material that's new and I especially enjoyed the Lando talk. I think that's really
Mhm.
really fertile new ground to explore when it comes to. Yeah, Brian's rubbing his hands together for those of you who are listening to the
Yeah.
show, because there's a lot of really fun things that I think exist out there for Lando that are as yet not on the table. So I think with that, we're going to wrap the show. Once again, thank you, Seth, for being on. This has been Winter Moon Wargaming. I'm David.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Brian.
Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.